Hi everyone. Welcome back to my book channel. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the books I read in February. Technically I read two complete books. One is Sweet Thursday and the other one is Cannery by Steinbeck. I also started reading Bukowski's The Postman. In general, the reason why I picked a Steinbeck book was because I have wanted to read East of Eden for a long time, but I find that the commitment to read a full novel sometimes can be either very disappointing if you've never read that author in a short form, even though they might actually write very differently as an author writing a long novel. And I had a mild reading slump, so the best way to get off of that is to read an author you've never read before. For me, that's Steinbeck. And then also read a book that's short enough to get you interested in the story very quickly. But also, a curious scene, let's say an unfamiliar landscape, so the setting of the story. And Steinbeck seemed like a great choice. In this story, we follow the lives of people in this area called Cannery in California in the 50s, I think. Not sure about that, but and it's almost as if this is the story about Doc and the characters in his life, but it also highlights this sense of a person being in a place that they don't seem to belong, but still very much belonging in it. In that sense, Doc, who is a well-educated marine biologist with quirky interests and a huge drinker, might even say borderline drunkard, who is, I guess, unable to belong in the social circles of academia. So he even lives in the least desirable place for someone who is as educated as him to live. But it also gives you a portrait, among the working class, even though he is technically not a working class, he kind of lives a life that portrays that as his preference or way of living. Um, I actually started reading Sweet Thursday before I read Cannery because I didn't know that it was part of the second. So it was the second of the two books. I found out a bit later that this was a book where we meet the same characters from Cannery. So I went and found Cannery at my library and started reading it, even though I had read kind of maybe a quarter of the Sweet Thursday book. For some reason, Steinbeck does a really good job of showing you who the characters are instead of telling you who they are. And I found that very much a theme throughout the book. Mark and the boys don't change, and there's a series of unfortunate events that seem to follow their planning and them and whoever they associate with. In the first book, it's an introduction to the boys and everyone, But in the second book, you really see their characteristics and their abilities to be in the presence of other people and make a mess of it very visible. But it shows you how society kind of works if you put yourself in the social setting that you're given. You participate in it. There was so much participation by pretty much everyone in the community building life of Cannery Row. I also found it's very interesting that despite my first impression that Doc would sort of not make it out of this like era, like place alive, he kind of did. He made it out. Maybe not, but he sort of did. And we are also introduced to a romantic interest of his, and it's a very good book with a very good writing style that kind of puts you in the setting and in the characters' lives. I also found that I actually watched a movie within this period that I was reading the book, and it was Good Will Hunting. I have never seen it before, and it sort of highlights um, some of those themes of characters trying to pull themselves out of the situations that they shouldn't be in, but then they're like, I'm happy here, and it's sort of like a dilemma. And in the Good Will Hunting, I found it interesting that one of the boys, one of the friends of the main character, told him that every day I dream that I walk through that door and find that you're not there. And that was the most, staggering, and it made the character sort of find out that everyone around him really did want the best for him to use his talents to get out of the poverty and the lifestyle that he was living. It's kind of naive to think that, or to even say that being a janitor is a life of poverty, because that's very elitist and also a bit to be honest, very unaware. Like, there are more janitors who are happier than there are rich people. It's not because they make enough, I guess, to live, but because they have full lives. And I think for everyone, every individual, it's a different gamble. And sometimes a balance of both worlds works the best, but that can't be everyone. So in Good Will Hunting, I found that, you know, it, it was moving in the sense that, yes, you have these gifts, use them. Some of us don't get born with them. You gotta use your gifts. But it's also kind of naive to say that, no, yeah, the working class life is such a horrible way to live. No, it's not. It really depends on how you look at life, and you can go about life grumpy and disillusioned about what it means to be successful, but living a full life, I think, in my opinion, in a way that you determine what you do with your time and what you want to do for yourself and others, doing no harm, is much more fulfilling. So you might even say that Doc was kind of living that kind of life where he was not really committing to being in the circles that he should have been in according to the demands of people who were probably looking at him. But he was living a life that he enjoyed. He could just wake up, go get his beer in the morning. My video stopped because my card is full, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm also reading a food, Rude Food by Sanghavi. It's a collected writings by a food journalist in India. And then I'm also reading Fernando Pessoa's The Book of Disquiet, because I don't think that's one of those books that you could read in 1 or 2 or even 3 sittings. I consider it a work of art, so I'm taking my time reading it, letting it simmer, letting it make me think about what I want to write. And yeah, so just reading it very slowly. And I picked back this book, Jack Pollock's Consider This. It's also a book about writing. So yeah, those are all the books that I'm currently reading. I'm probably reading a bit more because I'm learning Dutch, so I'm reading a few books in Dutch. Children's books, obviously. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching my little video. If you like this kind of slow, talking about the books I read, 3 books maximum probably. Yeah, you can subscribe, like, and share the video. Okay, I'm kidding. Okay, go read. Bye.